You have blossomed into a stunning young woman, yet there is something important I need you to grasp. This secret of yours is not something the world will readily embrace. I'm not sure if love is in your future, Abina. Men may find themselves shattered upon uncovering the truth. No one would desire your company upon seeing you in your true form. In a time long past, nestled in the northern regions of Nigeria, there existed a charming and serene village known as Dajabo. This village resembled a treasure chest, endowed with lush, fertile soil that rendered it ideal for agriculture. The inhabitants of Dajabo exhibited a remarkable work ethic and a joyful spirit. Many of them dedicated their days to cultivating crops or tending to their animals, finding joy in their uncomplicated yet rewarding lifestyle. The village lay encircled by lush green fields and expansive open spaces, creating an ambience that felt almost enchanting. In this charming village resided a young man named Kwame. He was the sole child of his parents, and they cherished him deeply. Kwame's father had always envisioned his son marrying young and beginning a family as he was their sole child, ensuring the continuation of their lineage. However, Kwame was a reserved young man who struggled to engage in conversation with women. Close to Kwame's family farm, there was a ranch belonging to an elderly gentleman named Alhaji Karim. Alhaji Karim had a granddaughter, Zainab, whose beauty rivaled that of the sunrise. Zainab possessed kind eyes, a warm smile, and a heart brimming with love. She devoted her days to caring for her grandfather's cattle, softly humming joyful melodies as she strolled along. Her parents had departed when she was just a child, leaving her in the care of her grandfather, who cherished her profoundly and regarded her as a treasure gem. Kwame frequently felt an irresistible attraction to Zainab. He observed her from afar, captivated by the elegance of her movements and the way her voice seemed to animate the entire ranch. She possessed a kindness and gentleness that was beautifully complemented by her quiet strength. Each day, Kwame would steal furtive looks at her, feigning busyness while quietly yearning for her to see him. He concealed himself behind the trees, yearning for just a fleeting view of her smile or the sound of her laughter. Before long, she consumed his every thought. He was utterly enchanted by her, yet he found himself at a loss for how to make his move. He feared she may not share his feelings. On a bright, sunny afternoon, fortune smiled upon him. While Kwame strolled through the fields, a piercing scream abruptly pierced the air. A woman's voice echoed, filled with desperation. His heart raced as he recognized the source was Karim's ranch. Without a moment's hesitation, he seized his cutlass and sprinted with all his might. Upon his arrival, he found Zainab paralyzed with terror, confronted by a colossal python that had crept perilously near to her. The serpent's eyes shimmered with intensity, poised to attack as he gathered every ounce of his bravery. Kwame lunged at the snake with every ounce of his power. With a single, decisive swing, he brought his cutlass down upon the python, ending its life in an instant. Zainab observed with wonder, her trepidation dissipating as she beheld Kwame standing there, panting yet triumphant. She had encountered him numerous times in the past, yet an opportunity to converse with him had always eluded her. At that moment, he had become her savior. "Thank you so much," Zainab said softly, her voice quivering yet brimming with appreciation. Her smile lit up the room, captivating Kwame in a way he had never experienced before. In close proximity, her beauty was even more captivating, causing his heart to race. "No need for thanks," Kwame said, attempting to maintain his composure. "I'm truly grateful that you're safe." They lingered for a moment, exchanging a quiet smile that conveyed more than any words could express. From that moment on, everything transformed. Kwame and Zainab swiftly forged a friendship. When the sun blazed too fiercely for work, they would retreat beneath the expansive shade of a grand tree, sharing their dreams and chuckling over the small joys that brightened their day. Kwame's joyful demeanor put Zainab at ease, while Zainab's warmth profoundly moved Kwame. Before long, their friendship evolved into something far more profound. They understood that a future without one another was beyond their imagination. Upon Kwame sharing the news of Zainab with his parents, their hearts swelled with joy. They had always hoped for his marriage, and they couldn't have picked a more perfect bride on their own. With their approval, Kwame and Zainab's romance took a joyful turn. They united as partners for life. Their union filled their families with joy and infused the entire village of Dajabo with a sense of hope and warmth. Life together as a couple was a dream come true. Kwame's affection for her shone through in his every action towards her. They experienced countless joyful moments together, filled with laughter and the exuberance of running around like carefree children at the ranch. At home, they tackled all the chores as a team. Alhaji Karim consistently recounted his love story with Zainab, and she could always see the joy radiating from his face whenever he shared this tale with her during her childhood. He constantly reminisced about his wife, who was running late, while Zainab often envisioned a joyful love life akin to that of her grandfather. Being with Kwame felt like a dream realized. It was all she had ever desired in a partner, or so she believed. Zainab's happiness was limitless when she found out she was expecting. The long-anticipated news finally arrived, and the whole household burst into joyous celebration. Aisha, her mother-in-law, radiated the most joy among them all. With tears of joy glistening in her eyes, she embraced Zainab tightly and started to envision the future, dreaming of the arrival of a male heir. A grand feast was prepared by the family, inviting neighbors and friends to partake in their joy. The upcoming days brimmed with fervent prayers and unwavering hope as Aisha journeyed to sacred mountains to beseech for divine blessings. She hoped her daughter-in-law would give birth to a son, a symbol of pride and the continuation of their family legacy. Throughout her pregnancy, Zainab was pampered and adored. Aisha and Kwame indulged her without restraint, making certain she enjoyed the finest meals and had ample time to rest. Each day they surrounded her with affection and attention, constantly reinforcing her worth in their eyes. Zainab felt profoundly valued and couldn't have been more content. She envisioned a radiant future with her child and her devoted husband beside her. Yet destiny had different intentions, and the happiness that once illuminated her heart quickly transformed into sorrow. The long-awaited day of delivery had finally come. It ought to have been a day of festivity, with rhythmic drums echoing and melodies of happiness resonating throughout the atmosphere. Instead, it turned into a day that the family would always remember, but for all the unfortunate reasons. Within the shadows of a dimly lit hut, the midwife's piercing scream pierced through the stillness. Aisha, who had been waiting outside, rushed in but halted abruptly at the doorway. Her eyes widened in disbelief and her face contorted with fury. She burst out of the hut, fingers snapping in frustration, muttering curses softly to herself. "What is it, mother?" Kwame inquired, his voice laced with confusion as he observed his mother pacing angrily, murmuring words that eluded his understanding. "Aisha's role has introduced a true monstrosity into our midst. A wicked little one." Kwame stood still. "What are you trying to convey, mother? What monstrosity? What's happening?" Aisha shot him a fierce look. Her voice was piercing and relentless. "Step inside and witness it firsthand. Behold the wickedness she has the audacity to label your child." Kwame had never witnessed his mother in this light before. Her anger loomed over him, a heavy burden that he couldn't shake off. With a heart brimming with apprehension, he entered the hut. The atmosphere within was heavy with unease. Zainab reclined on the wooden bed, her face marked by tears, her body quivering. The midwife moved quietly, tidying her expression with grace. "What is it exactly?" Kwame inquired about his unsteady state. "Zainab, is something bothering you? What transpired?" Zainab was unable to utter a word. Her lips trembled as she gestured faintly towards the cot where their newborn rested. Kwame moved forward cautiously, his heart racing. As his gaze landed on the infant, he recoiled in disbelief, his fingers clutching the rim of the crib for steadiness. The child was a marvel, a sight beyond anything he had ever encountered. "Hold on, what is this?" he faltered, his voice scarcely rising above a murmur. "Zainab, what sort of child is this? Is it a male or a female? What should we refer to it as?" Tears flowed down Zainab's cheeks as she sat upright, her voice trembling. "It is our child, Kwame. Kindly take a moment to relax. This is our offspring." Yet Kwame's expression contorted with fury and incredulity. "No," he pivoted at the sound of his voice reverberating in the confined space. "This child belongs to you, Zainab, not to me. And don't you ever refer to this as my child again. If you do, I promise you there will be serious consequences." Zainab gasped, her heart shattering into countless fragments as she witnessed the man she adored walk away from her. Kwame burst out of the hut, his face a canvas of disappointment and fury. Outside, Aisha stood waiting, her demeanor icy and resolute. In pursuit of her, they turned their backs, abandoning Zainab in their wake. Within the shadows of a dimly lit hut, Zainab sat in solitude, her shoulders shaking as quiet sobs coursed through her frame. The atmosphere was thick and stifling, as though her sorrow had permeated every inch of the confined area. She grasped the edge of the wooden bed for stability, her eyes brimming with tears as they remained locked on the tiny baby nestled in the cot. The child appeared utterly pure, completely defenseless, blissfully ignorant of the turmoil and sorrow that had accompanied its arrival into the world. Zainab's heart felt shattered. She yearned to embrace the child tightly, to protect it from the harshness of the world. Yet, simultaneously, a sense of fear and despair enveloped her. The family she had relied on, the individuals who had filled her heart with love and assurances of support, had abandoned her in her time of greatest need. The sole figure left was the midwife, Miriam, a woman whose expression now carried the burden of unexpressed grief. Miriam had brought many lives into the world over the years, yet nothing had prepared her for this moment. The turmoil and sorrow reflected in Zainab's eyes shattered her heart. She observed the young mother weep without end, her sorrow permeating the space like a haunting refrain that refused to fade away. Miriam moved with a serene grace, her hands unwavering as she simmered a fragrant herbal brew over the flickering flames. She recognized that the path of pregnancy was a challenging one, marked by discomfort, anxieties, and the burden of anticipation. To endure the trials of labor and bring forth a child, only to face rejection and scorn was a cruelty that defied comprehension. She poured the steaming mixture into a clay cup and approached Zainab, her footsteps gentle yet determined. Miriam settled beside her, gently resting a reassuring hand on Zainab's shoulder. Her voice carried a softness yet held a resolute strength as she spoke. "Zainab, I won't feign understanding, as I've never encountered a child quite like this before. However, one thing I can say with certainty is that it is not your fault. This situation was beyond your control, and you had no way to alter its course. The divine bestows the gift of children, and the intricacies of his plan surpass our comprehension. We should appreciate the life we have been granted, even when it doesn't unfold as we had anticipated." Zainab sniffled and gazed at Miriam, her vision blurred by tears. She longed to trust her own words, yet the burden of her husband's fury and her mother-in-law's harsh words suffocated her spirit. Miriam placed the cup gently into Zainab's shaking hands. Throughout this process, she emphasized, "It will aid in your body's recovery. Be resilient, Zainab. You must find strength for yourself and above all, for your child and your husband. He's facing some challenges at the moment, but I have faith that he will find his way back. He simply requires some time to reflect on the events that have unfolded. Until that time comes, remember this. Your secrets are secure with me, and no matter what unfolds, you will not face it alone." Zainab's hands trembled as she lifted the cup to her lips, savoring the warmth of the liquid within. The unpleasant flavor was inconsequential. Miriam's gentle words ignited a spark of solace within her broken heart. For the first time since the ordeal began, she experienced a flicker of relief, realizing that someone truly grasped her suffering. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice soft yet brimming with heartfelt appreciation. As she savored the brew, her mind wandered back to Kwame. His expression, contorted with disbelief and revulsion, lingered in her thoughts. Throughout their time together, she had witnessed a myriad of emotions reflected in her husband's eyes. Affection, happiness, respect, but never animosity. The intensity of his gaze, as if she were something grotesque, filled her with a profound ache that words could never capture. Did they still hold a glimmer of hope for a future together? Or had this child, this pure and innocent being, forged an unbreakable divide between them? Her gaze returned to the baby, who lay peacefully, unaware of the tempest swirling around it. The child possessed both male and female sex organs, a condition she had never encountered before. It was an enigma that she herself found perplexing. "Why, God," she murmured softly, fresh tears cascading down her cheeks. "What makes me the right choice? Why my little one?" Miriam remained close, her quiet companionship serving as a soothing remedy for the injuries that no treatment could mend. The path before them stretched out, filled with challenges and unknowns, yet in that instant, Zainab held tightly to the flicker of hope she possessed, believing that she and her child could discover solace in a world that had already cast its verdict upon them. A few days later, Zainab came back to what she believed was her home, only to discover her belongings strewn outside the huts. Clothes haphazardly piled in bundles, pots and pans resting on the dusty earth, and her cherished belongings scattered without care. Her heart plummeted as the sight pierced her with a sudden wave of fear. The sound of pots clanging echoed from the kitchen, where Aisha, her mother-in-law, was immersed in her cooking, seemingly unfazed by the events that had transpired. Meanwhile, her husband Kwame sat outside the huts, his expression a tempest of rage and resentment. The affection she once perceived in his gaze had disappeared, supplanted by a chill that cut through her very being. Tears filled Zainab's eyes as she let her basket fall and hurried towards him. Her voice quivered, struggling to maintain composure. Kwame, what is going on here? What are you up to? What are my belongings doing outside? She gazed at him, yearning for clarity, wishing this was merely a miscommunication. Kwame initially averted his gaze from her. When he finally spoke, his voice lacked any warmth. This marriage is over, he stated with a sense of finality. This presence is unacceptable in my home, and I would prefer your absence as well. Zainab's knees gave way, and she grasped the doorway for stability. No, Kwame, please, she pleaded, her voice trembling. This is our little one. What is the method for accomplishing this? Feels as though we can be discarded so easily. We are your kin. A piercing voice sliced through the atmosphere, prompting Zainab to glance over at Aisha, who stood in the kitchen doorway with her hands firmly on her hips and a look of utter disdain etched across her face. Relatives? Aisha let out a sharp spit. How could you possibly consider yourself family to us? Your friends are welcoming perfectly healthy children. Yet here you are with what you've created. A curse has befallen you, Zainab. I ought to have anticipated this. You are under a dark spell, and we shall not engage in your wickedness. Neither my son nor my family. Zainab's head shook vehemently as she approached her mother-in-law, imploringly. Please, Mama, don't you ever call me that. Aisha's voice thundered, laced with fury. I am not here to play that role. Your mother passed away years ago, don't you recall? I am grateful for this, as she is spared from witnessing the disgrace you have inflicted upon our family. Remove this so-called child from my son's presence. Your presence is no longer desired. Here. Zainab glanced at Kwame, her final glimmer of hope, yet he avoided her gaze. His jaw tightened, fists clenched, and in silence, he stood up from his chair and strode into the hut, forcefully shutting the door behind him. The sound reverberated in her mind, harsh and definitive, confirming that the man she cherished had decided to exclude her from his existence. For a brief moment, Zainab remained motionless, her gaze fixed on the door as if it held the possibility of opening once more, yet it remained steadfastly closed. The burden of the rejection weighed heavily on her, and tears streamed down her cheeks without restraint. The recollections of all the joyful moments they had experienced together, the laughter, the aspirations they had softly spoken beneath the stars. The vows of eternity dissipated like mist, leaving her isolated in the stark truth of her forsakenness. With quivering hands, Zainab knelt and started to collect her possessions. Every object she touched seemed to echo the fragments of her broken heart. Her tears cascaded onto the dusty earth as she gathered her belongings, gripping them fiercely, as if that might somehow piece together her shattered existence. She cast a final look at the hut, filled with a desperate wish that someone would emerge, that someone would beckon her to return. Yet there was an absence, merely a stillness interrupted solely by the echo of her own tears. Understanding that there was no alternative, she pivoted and started the arduous journey back to her grandfather's house, the sole place she could still consider home. As she made her way to the door, her grandfather Alhaji Karim stood there, his frail face etched with worry upon seeing her, tears cascading down her cheeks while she cradled her child in her arms. In silence, he extended his arms, and Zainab fell into them, weeping without restraint. He enveloped her in his arms, the warmth of his embrace steady and reassuring. You will always have a place here, he said gently. In this vast world, there remained at least one soul who cherished her, and for the moment, that was sufficient to hold her upright. Life was a challenging journey for little Abina. Although her great-grandfather Alhaji Karim and her mother Zainab cherished her deeply, their affection was accompanied by a formidable barrier of safeguarding. They kept a constant vigil over her, ensuring she was never out of their view. Though their intentions were noble, Abina felt confined, akin to a bird in a cage yearning to unfurl its wings. Abina's upbringing set her apart from the other children in the village. Zainab was resolute in her efforts to shield her daughter from the unforgiving scrutiny of the villagers. She understood that if Abina's secrets were revealed, it would result in harsh murmurs, accusatory gestures, and relentless mockery. The villagers showed little kindness towards what they could not comprehend, and Zainab was determined to do whatever it took to protect her child. This involved protecting Abina in every conceivable manner, ensuring she remained concealed from inquisitive gazes and restricting her from engaging or socializing with other kids. As the other children dashed joyfully through the village, their laughter ringing out beneath the bright sun, Abina remained by the small window of their hut, gazing longingly at a world that was just beyond her reach. She would catch glimpses of them laughing or playing hide-and-seek in the fields. She pressed her delicate hand against the window frame, her heart weighed down by a deep sense of yearning. Why was she not like them? What was it that kept her in solitude? Her life was distinct in countless aspects. Even the most mundane activities like taking a bath were enveloped in mystery. While other girls her age bathed outside their huts or by the stream, Zainab would lead Abina into a nearby bush to wash her away from curious gazes. Abina was perplexed by the necessity of concealing every aspect of her life. One day, driven by an insatiable curiosity, she turned to her mother and asked, "Mama, why do you treat me this way? What prevents me from joining the other kids in play? Why must I always remain in the shadows?" Zainab knelt and tenderly cradled her daughter's face in her hands. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she sought the perfect words. "Abina, you are truly a remarkable child," she said gently. "I have no intention of causing you any pain. I assure you, my love for you is deeper than you could ever comprehend. In time, as you grow older, the reasons behind my actions will become clear to you. For the time being, you need to have faith in me." Even though Zainab intended her words to provide solace, they only deepened Abina's sense of confusion and isolation. She felt a sense of isolation rather than uniqueness. Every day, as she observed the other children giggling and frolicking, a subtle pain blossomed in her heart. She longed for the day when her mother would allow her to be like the other kids, to laugh and play without the weight of judgment or the need to be concealed. As Abina reached the age to begin her schooling, Zainab and Alhaji Karim found themselves confronted with a challenging choice. They understood that the moment had arrived to consider her future, yet they were acutely aware of the dangers of allowing her to venture into the world. "We can't send her to the village school," Zainab stated resolutely one evening, as she and her grandfather deliberated the issue. One can only imagine the reactions of the other children, their parents, or teachers if they were to discover the truth. "Our greatest desire is for her to embrace a life free from shame and stigma." Alhaji Karim nodded in agreement, his expression contemplative. "Homeschooling her is the ideal choice. We will ensure she acquires all the necessary knowledge right here at home, where she will be safe with us." Even though it pained Zainab deeply to distance herself from Abina, she understood that this was the sole means of safeguarding her at this moment. One day, Zainab reflected, "I will reveal the truth of her identity. But for now, my wish is for her to enjoy her childhood, filled with safety and happiness." Abina's homeschooling commenced with the mentorship of Malam Abib, a gentle and understanding middle-aged man, revered in the village for his profound passion for literature and history. Malam Abib transcended the role of a teacher. He embodied the essence of a storyteller. His lessons brimmed with stories of ancient kings, valiant warriors, and sagacious scholars that ignited a spark of excitement in Abina's eyes. He patiently guided her through the alphabets and their sounds, teaching her to read and write in both Arabic and English. He also introduced her to arithmetic, revealing how numbers functioned like intriguing puzzles eager to be unraveled. Abina's keen intellect absorbed each lesson effortlessly. She swiftly grasped the lessons presented to her, frequently astonishing Malam Abib with her rapid progress. He smiled at her progress and said, "Abina, you are one of the brightest students I've ever had." Abib frequently accompanied his daughter Halima to their lessons. Halima was a bright and spirited girl, just a year older than Abina, with a welcoming smile that put others at ease. Initially, Abina felt a sense of shyness in Halima's presence, yet the warmth of Halima's friendly demeanor gradually dismantled her barriers. Before long, the two girls became utterly inseparable. They would gather during lessons, sharing laughter over inside jokes or assisting one another with challenging assignments. Abina eagerly anticipated Halima's visits, which brightened her days. After the lessons concluded, the two girls would linger beneath the cool shade of the neem tree in Zainab's yard, perusing the books that Malam Abib had brought from the city. He enriched Abina's little universe with tales of distant realms, thrilling escapades, and courageous champions. Abina discovered a unique liberation in reading, a journey that transported her to realms she had only imagined, all while nestled in the warmth of her small heart. In Halima's absence, Abina would curl up with her books, losing herself in enchanting words that eased her solitude. As the years went by, Abina blossomed into a breathtaking young woman. Her almond-shaped eyes shimmered with insight, and her caramel skin radiated vitality. Upon reaching 18, her beauty was unmistakable, yet her life remained a tapestry of unanswered questions. Alhaji Karim, her cherished great-grandfather, had departed this world when she was just 14, creating an emptiness in her heart. Her father had disappeared soon after she was born, and no one had received any news of him since that time. Zainab consistently steered clear of discussions about him, yet Abina's intrigue deepened as time passed. Zainab understood that the moment would arrive when she could no longer protect Abina from the reality. Her daughter had grown up. She was a young woman, mature enough to seek the truth, and Zainab's narrative couldn't remain concealed indefinitely. That night, as they gathered around the flickering flames of their shared warmth, Zainab inhaled deeply. Her eyes brimmed with emotion as she started to speak. "Abina," Zainab said, her voice quivering, "there's something I've hidden from you all these years. It's time for you to uncover the reality of who you are and the story of your beginnings." Abina inched forward, her heart racing. There was an unshakable feeling within her that her mother was holding back a secret, yet the nature of that secret eluded her grasp. As Zainab began, "The midwife and I observed something quite peculiar at the moment of your birth. You came into the world with a pair of sex organs. It was unlike anything I had ever encountered. Your father was unable to cope with it. He referred to you as an abomination and departed from us. His family too rejected us and warned me never to come near them again." Abina felt a constriction in her chest as she absorbed the words, her eyes widening in disbelief. "I kept it from you because I didn't want you to feel embarrassed," Zainab continued, her tears now flowing down her cheeks. "I have dedicated my existence to shielding you from the harsh remarks of those around us. I never wanted anyone to cause you the pain that your father did. Abina, you are my child, and my love for you knows no bounds. You are unique, regardless of what others may claim." Zainab grasped Abina's hand gently, her gaze penetrating as she searched the depths of Abina's eyes. "You have blossomed into a stunning young woman, yet there is something important I need you to grasp. This secret of yours is not something that the world will readily embrace. I can't say for certain whether love will come your way, Abina, especially when it comes to men, and be ripped apart when they uncover the reality. No one would desire your company upon seeing you in your true form. But don't let that stop you from finding joy. Discover what brings you joy and cherish it. And I ask that you vow to keep this under wraps. It is imperative that this remains a secret." Abina nodded slowly, her complexion wan and her thoughts racing. A profound sorrow enveloped her heart, an emotion that eluded her ability to articulate. For years she immersed herself in the enchanting tales of love and joy that Halima brought from the city, filled with dreams of happiness and everlasting bliss. She envisioned a love story of her own, a captivating narrative where she would discover someone who valued her as deeply as the heroes adored the heroines in her novels. Yet, her mother's words shattered that aspiration. "No one would desire your company upon seeing you in your true form." The words reverberated in her thoughts, piercing and harsh. Despite the warmth in Zainab's words, Abina fought back tears, striving to maintain her composure. Yet within, her heart was burdened by a profound sense of hopelessness. Would she ever discover a person who would cherish her for her true self? Was she fated to navigate her existence in solitude, concealing her true self for all eternity? Even though Abina remained mostly silent that night, she clung to her mother's words, deeply aware of the love and sorrow they carried. For weeks, Abina rested in a small hut, her heart burdened by sorrow. She found herself gazing at the wooden ceiling, her mother's words echoing in her mind repeatedly. The reality of her origins and the burden of her uniqueness surged within her like a tempest, yet her mother's gentle reassurances acted as a soothing balm, easing her troubled heart. "Abina," Zainab would whisper, her voice tender and brimming with feeling. "It might not be obvious, but I take immense pride in having you as my child." Zainab sat beside her daughter, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears as she tenderly stroked her hair. "Your kindness is truly appreciated, Abina. Your heart shines with clarity. Your interactions with the children, your compassion for the animals on the farm, and the love and respect you show to everyone around you speak volumes. Your intellect is truly remarkable. I long for the opportunity to send you to the university. I believe you will achieve remarkable things, my dear, but please hear me out, sweetheart. Though the world may turn away from you in its harshness, your light remains undeniable. Your presence is essential, and your brilliance will illuminate the way, regardless of the circumstances. Tears flowed down Abina's cheeks, her mother's words enveloping her in a comforting embrace. Zainab's love and encouragement didn't eliminate the pain, but they sowed a tiny seed of hope in Abina's heart. She understood that despite her feelings of difference, she needed to press on. Her mother had faith in her, and that faith provided her with the strength to begin reconstructing her broken confidence. As Abina started to mend, her aura grew increasingly luminous to the inhabitants of Dajabo. The villagers had never encountered a beauty quite like hers. As Abina strolled through the dusty streets, her gaze shifted in awe. People of all ages paused in their tracks, eyes wide and mouths agape, captivated by her mesmerizing allure. Her almond-shaped eyes sparkled with kindness, her skin glowed like the morning sun, and her smile was so warm that it seemed to melt even the toughest hearts, making the description of her beauty feel far from an understatement. Abina was a work of art. Even with all the recognition she garnered, Abina stayed grounded and gracious. She welcomed each person she encountered with her trademark smile, a soft nod of her head, and expressions brimming with reverence. Even the most cantankerous elders in the village couldn't help but return her smile. Zainab had truly excelled in her role as a parent, and Abina was the type of child that anyone would be honored to claim as their own. At the ranch, Abina moved with unwavering determination beside her mother, tending to the animals and ensuring that all operations flowed seamlessly. Yet her radiance was most vivid in the presence of the village's children. She made it her mission to visit the local school whenever possible, guiding the younger ones in their journey to read and write. The children cherished her, not merely for her lessons, but for the delightful way she transformed learning into an enjoyable experience. Abina sang and danced while she taught, her laughter resonating like a sweet tune, and the children leaped with delight, clapping their hands and joining in the fun. As soon as Abina stepped onto the school grounds, the children would rush towards her, calling out her name and pulling at her hands, all yearning for her attention. She handled each of them with tenderness and understanding, and they regarded her with the reverence one might show a monarch. Her radiance was unmistakable, and despite the weight she bore within, she never allowed it to overshadow her vibrant essence. In a realm that frequently felt cruel and relentless, Abina's compassion and modesty shone like a luminous star against the dark expanse of night. As time went on, Zainab's compound became a gathering place for men hoping to win Abina's hand in marriage. News of her beauty, kindness, and intelligence traveled extensively, drawing suitors from all corners who eagerly came to her doorstep, yearning to capture her affection. They arrived bearing offerings, sacks of rice, animals, exquisite textiles, and even jewels, all in an effort to win her favor. Some were wealthy farmers, others were traders, and a few were young men from influential families. However, Abina turned them all down. She perceived the facade of their smiles and charming words, aware that their attraction stemmed solely from her beauty and essence, and she dreaded the consequences if they were to unearth her hidden truths. The thought of being disgraced and abandoned, like her father had done to her mother, was too much to bear. Even with her choice mate, Abina found it challenging. She observed her peers discovering love and establishing their lives together. She witnessed their marriage, the beginnings of their families, and the joy they found with their partners. Though she felt joy for them, it intensified the sorrow within her. She yearned for love as well, desiring a companion who would value her for her true self. Yet she couldn't afford to let anyone get close enough to reveal her reality. Even her dearest companion Halima had tied the knot. Halima's husband was a prosperous farmer who adored her like royalty. The most recent occasion Abina laid eyes on her, she radiated joy. At this moment, Halima was expecting and glowing like never before. On a crisp evening, Halima arrived to see her friend. A rounded belly, a symbol of the new life she nurtured within. She appeared radiant, her cheeks plump and her smile shining as she entered Zainab's compound. "Abina," Halima exclaimed as she stepped inside, her voice brimming with enthusiasm. As she settled into her seat, her demeanor shifted, a look of confusion dancing in her eyes. "What's this I've been hearing about you, my dear companion?" Abina raised her gaze from her seat, her expression serene yet watchful. "I don't know what you're talking about," she replied softly, her eyes drifting away from Halima's gaze. Halima inched forward, her voice softening. "I hear you've dismissed more than 15 suitors, Abina." 15, including Ahmed, the son of the emir. Can you imagine how many women would do anything for a proposal like that? Though I'm heavily pregnant, I told myself that I must go and reason with this girl. "Abina, are you not interested in marriage? What's happening?" Abina froze, her hands gripping the edge of her seat. She struggled to articulate her thoughts as a weight settled in her chest and her throat constricted. "You wouldn't understand, Halima," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "It goes much deeper than you realize. I've always envisioned discovering a man who genuinely loves me, sharing a joyful life together, yet it feels just out of reach. I simply can't." Her eyes brimmed with tears cascading down her cheeks in silent streams. Halima, taken aback by the anguish in her friend's voice, instinctively reached out to grasp her hand. "What are you trying to say, Abina? What's stopping you?" The dam shattered and Abina's feelings surged forth. "Halima, I cannot marry," she sobbed, her voice quaking with despair. "I simply can't do it anymore." Her cries morphed into deep sobs as she rose suddenly, her body trembling under the burden of her feelings. She found it impossible to reveal to Halima the reality of her existence, that she existed beyond the confines of traditional gender, burdened by a secret that had profoundly influenced her entire life. Abina, overwhelmed by her friend's inquiries, dashed into the hut, forcefully shutting the door behind her. Inside, she fell onto the bed, pressing her face into her hands as her tears drenched the pillow. The weight of her secret was suffocating, and she loathed the way it drove a wedge between her and those she cherished. Halima sat in silence outside, her heart heavy with concern for her friend. She didn't understand what was wrong, but she could see that Abina was carrying something heavy, something she wasn't ready to share. Halima found this to be quite peculiar. Her brows knitted together in worry. What could be weighing on her mind so heavily? Eventually, Halima stood up. She understood that Abina required space to navigate her emotions, even though her desire to assist was strong. She recognized that certain matters required patience. She contemplated her decision as she began to walk away. "When she's ready, she will tell me what's wrong." And with that, Halima left, the sound of her footsteps fading into the evening. The village of Dajabo was buzzing with rumors about Abina. Everywhere you turned, people were talking about her, their voices low but filled with curiosity and judgment. The tale that captivated the audience the most was her refusal of Ahmed, a son of the emir. Ahmed stood out from the crowd. He was tall, remarkably handsome, and renowned for his immense wealth. His family held significant sway in the region, and for every girl, marrying into the emir's household was a cherished aspiration. It signified a life filled with ease, opulence, and prestige. Yet Abina, the village's most enchanting maiden, had boldly rejected him. As the village maidens strolled toward the stream, their clay pots balanced gracefully on their heads, the air buzzed with chatter centered around Abina. Their voices floated through the crisp morning air as they exchanged whispers and secrets. "Can you believe it?" one of them remarked, her voice laced with incredulity. "Ahmed, the emir's son, is wealthy, tall, and incredibly handsome. I would do anything to be in her position. How could she ever have turned it down?" Another maiden inclined her head, her brows knitted in thought. "I'm curious about her. Honestly, she has rejected so many men. Poor ones, rich ones, even the emir's son. It lacks clarity. She might be concealing something, or perhaps her pride is simply too great." "I think it's pride." Another chimed in, tossing her scarf over her shoulder with a flick of his wrist. "Abina acts like she's the most beautiful girl in the world. She likely believes that no man can measure up to her standards. My heart goes out to her. One day, she will find herself completely alone, and in that solitude, regret will wash over her." Their laughter rang out as they descended the hill towards the stream, their gossip fueling their amusement. Meanwhile, Ahmed sat isolated in his opulent chamber, engulfed by fury. He paced back and forth, the fine carpet beneath his feet, doing nothing to soften his growing frustration. He clenched his jaw while gazing into the expansive mirror before him, examining his reflection intently. He knew he was a catch. His sculpted visage, defined jawline, and affluence positioned him as one of the most sought-after bachelors in the whole village. However, Abina, the sole girl who had captured his attention, dismissed him without a moment's hesitation. "She didn't even glance my way," he murmured under his breath, his fist tightening at his side. "Just a soft, polite no. No explanation, no hesitation, just no. Who does she believe she is?" He struck his fist against the wooden table, causing the items upon it to tremble. Abina's rejection pierced deeper than he was willing to acknowledge. He strode into her compound with assurance, convinced that she would agree. Indeed, every other young woman in the village would have eagerly seized the opportunity to become his bride. He envisioned her as his partner, her allure enhancing his home, and her companionship affirming his standing as a man admired by many. Instead, she had brought him to shame, and the most painful part was that the entire village was aware of it. He had boasted to his friends, never expecting to be rejected. The murmurs of the townsfolk lingered in his mind. Wherever he traveled, he sensed their gazes upon him, their laughter echoing in his mind. Abina turned down Ahmed. The very thoughts made his blood boil. She will come to regret this, he snarled, his voice a low rumble brimming with rage. His heart raced within him, and his gaze burned with resolve. She thinks she can humiliate me, Ahmed, the son of the Emir. Absolutely, she will face the consequences for this. If she chooses not to be my wife, then I will ensure she weds no one else in this village. Ahmed's mind raced with plans to ensure Abina's rejection wasn't just a minor inconvenience, but a life-altering decision she would come to regret. His pride had taken a hit, and he was determined to find a means to mend it. From that moment forward, Ahmed started to observe her closely. As the weeks slipped into months, the rhythm of life in the village of Dabur continued its familiar course. Then one day an unexpected event occurred. A young man named Ibrahim returned to the village after being away for several years. Ibrahim stood as a beacon of pride for one of the most powerful families in Dabur. He had pursued his studies overseas, obtained a degree in medicine, and was thriving in his career. The village buzzed with anticipation at his return, with many eager to witness the transformation of the boy who had departed as a teenager, now blossomed into a successful man. Ibrahim's mother, Alaji Khadijat, served as the head mistress of the village school and was a cherished presence in the community. Ibrahim shared her love for children, and one of the first things he thought to do upon his return was to gather learning materials, books, and sweets to donate to the school. He possessed a kind spirit and truly aspired to impact the lives of the youth in his village. On the day Ibrahim visited the school, destiny had a remarkable surprise waiting for him. It was one of those days when Abina arrived to engage and have fun with the children. In the cool embrace of a sprawling mango tree, she twirled and sang with the little ones, her laughter echoing like a sweet melody. The children applauded enthusiastically, attempting to mimic her movements, their laughter ringing out as they twirled and swayed in delight. Her vibrant energy illuminated the surroundings, and her happiness was contagious. Just then, a shiny, expensive car pulled up near the school, drawing the children's attention. A tall, handsome young man stepped out, dressed smartly yet simple. With a demeanor that exuded confidence yet warmth, it was Ibrahim. He paused, his eyes catching sight of Abina under the tree. She was so immersed in her singing and dancing that she didn't notice him watching her. Ibrahim stood frozen, captivated by the scene before him. Her voice rang with a sweet clarity, and her movements were a blend of grace and playfulness as she danced with the children. Her beauty took his breath away. She was not merely beautiful, she was captivating. Her laughter, her vibrant energy, and the way the children clung to her as if she were their sanctuary, all made Ibrahim's heart flutter. He blinked twice as if to confirm he wasn't dreaming. In that moment, an indescribable feeling stirred within him, something he struggled to articulate. Ibrahim was utterly captivated. As he entered his mother's office, his mind lingered on the young woman beneath the tree. "Mother," he said, entering the room where Al-Hajja Khadijat was arranging the books. "Who is that young woman dancing with the children outside?" Khadijat gazed upward, her expression radiating warmth. "Ah, you're referring to Abina." "Abina," Ibrahim repeated softly, severing the name. Could that be her name? Who is this person? "She's such a delightful girl," Khadijat remarked, her smile growing broader. "Abina comes here often to help out with the children. She loves them, and they love her just as much. She possesses remarkable intelligence, a gentle kindness, and an exceptionally pure heart that is truly unparalleled. I like her a lot." Ibrahim's eyes lit up. He said thoughtfully, a small smile creeping onto his face. "I believe I have feelings for her as well." Khadijat's expression shifted immediately, her brothers knitting together in concern. "Ibrahim, it seems Abina is hesitant about marriage," she remarked thoughtfully. "She has encountered numerous suitors, men of good character, men of wealth, and she has turned them all away, including Ahmed, the son of the Emir." Ibrahim reclined in his chair, a contemplative expression gracing his features. "Perhaps she simply hasn't encountered the right individual," he remarked, his tone steady yet assured. "Is this the right individual?" "With more than 15 suitors and still counting, she hasn't found the right person," Khadijat inquired, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Ibrahim, I believe there's something deeper at play here. Abina rejecting the Emir's son is quite unusual. Ahmed possesses great wealth, striking looks, and earns the admiration of those around him. Any girl in this village would jump at the chance to marry him, but Abina, she said no without hesitation. There's something strange about her. Something I don't quite understand. Ahmed didn't seem fazed. Well, he said with a grin, I like her and I want to get to know her. What do you think, mother? Khadijat sighed, shaking her head but smiling softly. Good luck with that, my son. But don't say I didn't warn you. Yet, her voice took on a gentle quality, and a sense of longing flickered in her eyes. Abina stands out in a remarkable way. Her heart radiates purity, and there is a remarkable goodness within her that is rare to find in others. Perhaps you are the one who possesses the patience to truly grasp her essence. Ibrahim smiled, his determination growing stronger. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he was willing to take the risk. There was something about Abina that drew him in, something beyond her beauty and charm. It was her essence, her brilliance, and the enigma that enveloped her, and he was resolute in his quest to reveal it. As the day progressed, Ibrahim struggled to divert his gaze from Abina. As he engaged with the children and handed out the gifts he had brought, his eyes frequently wandered in her direction. She shone brightly, her presence illuminating the schoolyard. As she engaged with the children, her laughter, soft yet vibrant, resonated in his ears like a beautiful melody. The children cherished her, and it was evident in the way they held on to her. As Abina handed out gifts, she smiled warmly at their excited giggles. When she pointed them towards Ibrahim, they eagerly ran to him, their arms flying around his legs as they thanked him with wide smiles. Ibrahim felt a surge of emotion, fueled not only by the happiness of the children, but also by the presence of the woman who was the driving force behind it all. Watching Abina made his resolve clear. This maiden had stolen his heart and there was no turning back. Even if she wasn't ready for marriage, he told himself, he would be content just being her friend. He was determined to understand her, come what may. Once all the gifts were given out, Ibrahim presented packages to the teachers, who expressed their gratitude with heartfelt thanks. Their gratitude filled him with pride, but his mind was still on Abina. This was his opportunity, and he was determined not to let it pass him by. As the crowd thinned, he saw her approach, her face glowing with that same beautiful smile that had enchanted him earlier. Thank you so much, Abina said, her voice soft and melodic. The children are filled with joy, and the teachers share in that happiness as well. This holds great significance for everyone involved. Ibrahim felt his heart race. Her voice was as enchanting as her smile. Thank you, Abina, he replied, his tone sincere. I love what you are doing here with the kids. They clearly adore you. Abina's eyes grew wide with astonishment. You know my name, she inquired, tilting her head slightly. Why not? Ibrahim said, a small grin forming on his lips. You're famous among the children. They can't stop talking about you. Abina's laughter rang out, a delightful melody that effortlessly dispelled the warmth of the day. Ibrahim's heart raced once more. Before he could respond, she playfully remarked, Is that why you've been gazing at me all day? Surprised, Ibrahim erupted in laughter, a hint of color rising to his cheeks. Well, you got me there, he confessed, scratching the back of his neck. But can you blame me? Who could possibly resist the charm of a divine being such as yourself? Abina's cheeks turned a delicate shade of pink as she blushed, her eyes dropping shyly. Her smile deepened, and for a fleeting moment, silence enveloped them both. The quiet was punctuated solely by the joyful sounds of children at play in the distance. Summoning his courage, Ibrahim reached out his hand. I am Ibrahim, he said warmly. I genuinely hope we can become friends. Abina paused briefly, her eyes darting to his extended hand. Then she accepted it, her smile reappearing. I would like that as well, she said gently. As their hands met, an unvoiced yet profound bond appeared to flow between them. Ibrahim smiled, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within him. In the days that ensued, Ibrahim and Abina found themselves increasingly drawn to one another. Ibrahim appeared to uncover every possible reason to stay close to her. He would sit beneath the neem tree, observing her as she sang and danced with the children. Her laughter resonated like a melody, causing his heart to dance with joy. At times he would trail behind her to the ranch, where they would stroll together as she cared for the animals. He simply adored being around her. Her warmth, her kindness, and the way she infused life into everything around her. Abina also felt an undeniable attraction to Ibrahim. His humor brought out a laughter in her that she hadn't experienced in ages. She was captivated by his tales of the distant land where he had pursued his studies. He described urban landscapes where skyscrapers soared high, reaching for the clouds. Bustling streets filled with people from all over the world and schools with libraries so big that you could get lost in them. Abina's eyes sparkled with curiosity as she absorbed every word, and thoughts of him lingered in her mind even in his absence. Ibrahim held a profound affection for the village children, mirroring her own sentiments. He unveiled his vision to transform the village school into a more enriching environment for education. Abina was continually struck by his profound insight and gentle nature. He was not merely attractive. His heart overflowed with love, and his intellect was so keen that it left her utterly amazed. Deep down, she felt herself drawn to this young man, but a lingering shadow of fear clouded her thoughts. She kept in mind that this might not yield any results. Yet, she found herself drawn to him time and time again. She experienced her greatest joy in his presence. Each day their connection deepened. In the evenings they gathered beneath the grand tree in the school compound, immersed in books and exchanging thoughts. Ibrahim shared insights from his medical knowledge, while Abina absorbed every word with keen interest. The sole physician she had ever encountered was Malam Doga, the village herbalist who addressed his ailments with a blend of herbs and potions. To her, Ibrahim's knowledge was nothing short of enchanting. "If I had the opportunity to go to school, I think I would want to train as a professional teacher," Abina said one evening, a gentle smile gracing her lips. "However, I have a deep admiration for doctors. Your assistance to others is truly remarkable." "It's still possible," Ibrahim would say with a reassuring smile. "You can still go to school, Abina." She shook her head, a light laugh escaping her lips, uncertain of how that could ever come to be. Yet his words ignited a spark of hope within her. As the days transformed into weeks, their connection grew stronger. They exchanged laughter over jokes, recounted stories, and engaged in conversation well into the night. Ibrahim cherished the way Abina's eyes glimmered as she spoke of the children she envisioned. Abina, in contrast, cherished Ibrahim's kindness and passion, which extended beyond her to encompass all that he held dear. Before long, the villagers started to realize the significance of the moments they shared. Whispers fluttered through the air, igniting tales of a romance blossoming between the enchanting maiden and the sophisticated, worldly doctor. The village maidens whispered among themselves, envious of Abina's fortune, while the men exchanged puzzled glances, contemplating how Ibrahim had succeeded in capturing the affection of a woman who had turned away countless admirers. Yet, Ibrahim and Abina remained unfazed by the whispers circulating around them. Yet, within Abina's heart, a secret resided, hidden and profound. She yearned to relish each moment with Ibrahim, yet an unsettling anxiety lingered that this joy could be fleeting. One evening, as Abina settled in for dinner with her mother, Zainab, her voice laden with deep worry, spoke. "Abina, I'm concerned for you," she remarked, observing her daughter intently. "You are getting a bit too familiar with Ibrahim." Abina paused, placing her spoon aside. "It brings me joy, Mama," she whispered softly. "I understand the risks involved, but for once I simply desire to find joy." Zainab felt a deep pang in her chest as she absorbed her daughter's words. She could perceive the affection in Abina's gaze, reminiscent of the deep feelings she had once harbored for Abina's father. "Exercise caution, darling," she urged, her voice quivering. "Your father and I shared an unbreakable bond, that is, until you came into the picture. And when he could no longer face the truth, he walked away. Ibrahim might appear unique, yet once he discovers your true self, he could very well choose to leave you behind as well." Those words hit Abina with the force of a punch to the heart. Her eyes brimmed with tears as she gazed at her plate. She held a quiet hope within her that a path might exist for her and Ibrahim to unite, yet her mother's words echoed the unforgiving truth she could not evade. Yet, she clung to the hope that perhaps, just perhaps, Ibrahim was unlike the others. Perhaps there was hope for them yet. For the moment, she chose to embrace the joy she experienced with him, despite its transitory nature. She was uncertain about what lay ahead. As dusk settled in, the sun casting its final hues of orange and gold across the sky, Ibrahim made his way to Abina's home. His expression brightened at the sight of her, his grin radiating warmth and welcome. "Let's go boat riding," he exclaimed, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. Abina paused briefly, her mother's caution resonating within her thoughts, yet her gaze shifted to Ibrahim. His enthusiasm was contagious, and she found herself unable to resist. The heat was intense, and the idea of a refreshing breeze from the cold water was incredibly alluring. "All right," she said, a gentle smile gracing her lips, her heart quickening slightly. She understood that continuing to spend time with him was unwise, yet being with Ibrahim felt like a captivating dream she was reluctant to leave behind. The vessel swayed softly while traversing the serene waters, a crisp breeze caressing their cheeks. Joy echoed around them as they exchanged playful banter and conversed with the innocence of youth. Ibrahim playfully splashed water at her, prompting Abina to squeal in delight, her laughter echoing across the river. For a moment, the outside world seemed to dissolve, leaving only the two of them, enveloped in their own blissful sanctuary. Then the atmosphere transformed. Ibrahim's laughter faded, and his eyes grew tender as he met her gaze. The lively connection between them transformed into something more profound, something Abina struggled to define. Before she realized it, Ibrahim moved in closer, his hands softly caressing her cheek as he pressed his lips against hers. Abina felt her heart pounding in her chest. The kiss was gentle and fervent, enveloping her in a warmth she had never experienced prior. In that instant, her thoughts faded away, and for a brief moment, every fear dissolved. It was her first kiss, and it was nothing short of enchanting. As they finally separated, their faces still inches apart, Ibrahim's gaze locked onto hers, and his next words caused her heart to freeze. "I adore you deeply, Abina," he murmured, his voice brimming with feeling. "I wish to share my entire existence with you." Abina's eyes brimmed with tears cascading down her cheeks. She had longed to hear those words, yet they only brought her sorrow. After a moment of silence, she finally found her voice. "I love you too, Ibrahim," she whispered, her voice quivering with emotion. "Regrettably, we cannot be together." Ibrahim's brow furrowed, a heaviness settling in his chest. "What is the reason?" "Why, Abina? I sense that you share my feelings. We have a unique connection, so what's stopping us from being together?" Abina averted her gaze, her hands quivering. She found it impossible to reveal the truth to him. The burden she bore was immense, a truth too daunting to reveal. After a prolonged pause, she finally spoke, expressing her desire to return home. Ibrahim felt a constriction in his chest as he gazed at her, noticing the anguish reflected in her eyes. Her words, her tears, every detail about her whispered that she was concealing a secret. He was baffled by her decision to distance herself after everything they had experienced together. "What secrets are you keeping, Abina?" he inquired softly. "Allow me entry. No matter what comes our way, we will confront it side by side." "No," Abina exclaimed, her voice trembling. "Bring me back to where I belong." Her tears streamed down, and Ibrahim could perceive the fear and torment carved into her expression. Ibrahim, choosing not to impose, nodded quietly and steered the boat in the opposite direction. The remainder of the journey home was silent, the happiness of the night overshadowed by a profound sorrow. Upon arriving at her residence, she exited silently. Her shoulders drooped and faded into the hut. Ibrahim observed her departure, his heart heavy with unspoken inquiries. The stillness that hung between them stretched on for days, heavy and oppressive. Ibrahim lingered in his family's garden, seated serenely beneath the tree, immersed in contemplation. His heart lay shattered. He revisited each moment they had experienced together, every smile, every laugh, and the kiss that had felt so genuine. He was perplexed by Abina's sudden distance. The warning from his mother resonated within him, yet he found it impossible to abandon her. In that moment, Abina was overwhelmed with tears. She remained in her hut, her heart shattered. She cherished Ibrahim profoundly, yet her hidden truth was a barrier she couldn't dismantle. What kind of existence is this? She wept into her hands, her voice heavy with sorrow. Why can't I just fit in? What is stopping me from being with him? Her mother observed with a heavy heart, feeling the pain for her daughter. Zeynep longed to alleviate Abina's suffering, yet she understood that this was a challenge her daughter must confront independently. The bond shared by Abina and Ibrahim was unmistakable, yet the hidden truth she bore rendered it seemingly unattainable. Abina wept, clinging to the fragile hope that one day, in some way, peace would find her. Ahmed had been observing Abina intently for weeks, convinced that there was something peculiar about her, particularly since she began to grow very close to Ibrahim. His heart seethed with envy. He observed that, in contrast to the other maidens in the village, she consistently chose a hidden location in the bush for her baths, away from curious gazes. This has to be the moment, he mused inwardly. Whatever Abina concealed, he was resolute in his quest to reveal it and lay it bare for the whole village to see. On a significant day, Ahmed trailed her quietly as she headed to her regular bathing place. Concealed within the foliage, he observed Abina as she set her bucket down on the earth. Disrobed and started to bathe. His joy vanished, his body stiffening in disbelief as he uncovered what she had concealed. Abina had both male and female genitalia, whose bumps covered his skin. A blend of bewilderment, revulsion, and perverse pleasure enveloped him. Thus he pondered to himself, this is the reason she declines to wed. It's a way to belittle her. He stealthily advanced, seized her garments from the foliage where they were draped, and dashed away. The rustling noise caught Abina's attention, and she spun around just in time to witness Ahmed making off with her clothes. A wave of fear washed over her as the truth began to sink in. "Ahmed, please return my clothes," she cried, tears flowing down her cheeks. Yet Ahmed persisted. Her pleas only intensified his resolve. He was already planning his next move, to gather the villagers and expose her secret for all to see. Ahmed ran through the village like a madman, shouting at the top of his lungs, "May a higher power judge me if I speak untruths. Abina is currently in the bush. She exists beyond the confines of traditional gender. She possesses both male and female genitalia. Experience it for yourselves. I possess her garments as evidence. Observe it closely." The villagers, filled with curiosity and a thirst for intrigue, hurried to pursue him. "I always knew there was something strange about her," one Mortad, snapping her finger in disdain. "She believes she stands above the rest, turning down every suitor who dares to ask for her hand." As the crowd swelled, Ibrahim, who was on his way to the school to check on Abina, noticed the commotion. He halted a man sprinting by and inquired, "What's happening?" "It's Abina," the man said, his breath coming in quick gasps. "Her secret has been revealed." Ahmed states that she identifies as neither male nor female and possesses two sex organs. He has summoned the entire village to witness. "She's in the bush, somewhere down there." "No," Ibrahim gasped, his heart plummeting. In a flash, everything fell into place. The hidden truths, the dismissal of admirers, the sorrow reflected in her gaze. Could this be the hidden truth she had kept to herself? What was the reason behind her decision to distance herself from him? Without wasting a second, Ibrahim turned his car around and sped home. He snatched a wrapper from his mother's room and sped off towards the thicket where the villagers were assembling. He would not allow the woman he cherished to endure such humiliation. By the time he arrived, a large crowd had already formed, searching the bushes for Abina. Her bucket lay abandoned by the corner, but she was nowhere to be found. Ahmed persisted in his tirade, showcasing Abina's garments as proof and imploring the villagers to search for her. "Enough of this chaos," Ibrahim exclaimed. As he dashed into the throng, his voice, resolute and authoritative, hushed the Mormons. "Everyone go home. Abina is a person just like everyone else and we should not judge her. What you are doing is cruel and wrong." His tone became soothing. "I implore you, just let her be. Go back to your houses." The villagers paused, unsettled by Ibrahim's presence. They held him in high regard for everything he had accomplished since coming back to the village, from renovating the school to assisting the children and providing free medical care to the sick. Slowly, one by one, they began to disperse, murmuring as they turned back towards the village. Within minutes, the once chaotic scene grew calm. Ibrahim called softly as he ventured further into the thicket. "Abina, I have a wrapper for you. I will turn away so you can secure it. Allow me to escort you back to your place." Hiding among the grasses, Abina's tears fell silently. She was aware of it all, how Ibrahim had defended her, how he had dismissed the villagers. Gathering her courage, she crept out of her hiding place, her hands trembling as she reached for the wrapper he held out. She swiftly wrapped it around herself, and as she faced him, tears flowed endlessly down her cheeks. Ibrahim turned to face her, his eyes brimming with a poignant mix of sorrow and affection. "Why didn't you share that with me, Abina?" he inquired gently. "Didn't you trust me?" "I was scared," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I was scared you would abandon me the moment you found out. My father departed from my mother upon uncovering the reality. My mother believes that no man will ever love me because of this. I was afraid of losing you as well, and I was uncertain about how to be with you." Ibrahim moved in, enveloping her quivering form in his embrace. "Abina, this isn't your fault," he spoke softly. "You are not a monstrosity, you are a person, just like all others. You possess a condition known as hermaphroditism. It's a hormonal issue, and it can be treated since you identify as a woman. Undergoing surgery to remove the male organ is a viable option, and recovery is typically smooth." Abina's eyes grew wide, a glimmer of hope igniting for the first time since she had uncovered the truth about her identity. "Are you serious, Ibrahim?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "I would never joke about this," he said firmly. Let me take you to my home. I will make arrangements to help you get the care you need, and don't worry about anything. I will look after you and your mother." Abina wept once more, but this time her tears flowed with relief and gratitude. She couldn't believe that even after discovering her secrets, Ibrahim hadn't turned away. Instead, he had battled for her, remained steadfast by her side, and presented her with a future she had never even dared to envision. With Ibrahim's support, Abina finally sensed a flicker of hope for a life where she could genuinely find her place. The deranged Ahmed, still basking in his warped sense of victory, wandered through the village, disseminating the disgraceful tale of Abina's hidden truths. He paused at every opportunity in the bustling market square, beside the palm wine sheds, and close to the village well, recounting his story with a wicked delight. His words were met with gasps, laughter, and whispers, but Ahmed released every moment of the attention. He believed he had ruined Abina's life, yet he didn't realize he had enriched someone far more powerful than he could handle. Ibrahim, burning with fury, decided enough was enough. He could no longer bear the idea of Ahmed sullying Abina's reputation. As he strolled through the village, he noticed Ahmed encircled by a cluster of men, animatedly gesturing as he shared his tale. The men burst into laughter, feeling Ahmed's smug satisfaction. Ibrahim charged forward, his fury simmering just beneath the surface, poised to erupt at any moment. In an instant, before Ahmed had a chance to respond, Ibrahim unleashed a fierce punch that struck his jaw, knocking him down to the ground. Gasps filled the air as the men looked on while Ahmed fought to rise, disoriented and shamed. "What do you believe you are doing?" Ahmed retorted, his pride wounded. He charged at Ibrahim, but Ibrahim, taller and much stronger, easily overpowered him. Ibrahim seized Ahmed by the collar, delivering a punch, followed by another, each blow fueled by the memory of the hurt Ahmed had inflicted on Abina. "You are a fool," Ibrahim growled, his voice dripping with menace. "You are a disgrace to this village. You dare to shame the ones you are meant to protect. How pathetic of you." He hit him once more, causing Ahmed to stagger back and fall into the dirt. Just as he was about to complete his task, a group of villagers surged forward to drag him back. Ibrahim fought against their hold, his chest rising and falling with fury. "Hear me out," Ibrahim bellowed, commanding the attention of the assembled crowd. "Those who dare to speak poorly of Abina will have to contend with me. She is the woman I cherish, and what she is experiencing is not her doing. Her condition can be addressed with medical treatment or surgical intervention. There's no reason to feel embarrassed. If I hear another ignorant word about her, I will not hesitate to knock sense into the next fool, just like I did with this one." The villagers remained in shocked stillness, their laughter dwindling to whispers. Ibrahim's anger was unlike anything they had ever witnessed. His words resonated with undeniable truth and command, and for an instant, shame lingered in the atmosphere like a dense fog. Ahmed, now battered and humiliated, crumbled to his feet. He shot a fierce look at Ibrahim, yet refrained from striking back. Ibrahim's punches had felt like the force of 10 men, and he knew better than to provoke him further. Ahmed's confidence shattered when he discovered that Ibrahim, much like himself, hailed from a wealthy and powerful family. Any efforts to elevate the situation would only lead to negative consequences. Defeated, Ahmed retreated, his head bowed in sorrow. His schemes to destroy Abina's life had collapsed spectacularly. While the villagers continued to whisper about the incidents, none of them had actually seen what Ahmed claimed. In the absence of evidence, their intrigue faded into quiet conjecture. Weeks later, Abina's life took a turn she never thought possible. With Ibrahim by her side, she was flown to one of the best hospitals abroad to undergo surgery that would finally allow her to live free of the shame and fear that had followed her since childhood. The medical team was exceptional and the surgery was a success. For the first time, Abina sensed the burdensome weight of her secret begin to dissipate from her shoulders. She could now exist like any other woman with nothing concealed. Her recovery was swift, and Ibrahim never left her side throughout the process. He was there to hold her hand, cheer her up when she felt low, and remind her of how proud he was of her courage. Each day, Abina felt more confident, her spirit blooming like a flower in the sun. Upon their return to the village months later, she had become a transformed woman, her heart light and her smile shining brighter than ever. Their return was marked by an elaborate wedding ceremony that the entire village came together to celebrate. The sounds of drums filled the air, and tables overflowed with food. The villagers who had once murmured tales now came together to celebrate Abina and Ibrahim, a couple whose love had conquered every challenge. Abina looked radiant in her wedding attire, her beauty captivating all who saw her. Zainab sat among the guests, her face adorned with tears, not of sorrow but of sheer happiness. Watching her daughter dance with the love of her life, laughing and carefree, was a sight she had prayed for but never thought she would see. Although Zainab had never experienced love herself, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment in knowing that her daughter had discovered hers. "She feels a surge of joy," Zainab murmured softly, her heart brimming with pride. "That's the only thing that counts." Following the wedding, Ibrahim and Abina departed the village to embark on their new journey together. For Ibrahim, tying the knot with Abina was the finest choice he ever made. She was more than just his wife, she was his soulmate, his partner, his everything. He vowed to himself that he would provide her with the life she had always envisioned. Understanding Abina's passion for teaching, Ibrahim ensured she received the finest education available. He wished for her to abandon her aspiration of becoming a teacher so they could eventually return to the village and create something beautiful together. A place where she could ignite the spark of inspiration in children, just as she always had before. Abina also remembered the woman who had supported her through every challenge. She hired a maid for her mother, ensuring Zainab was well cared for even in her absence. She frequently reached out and came by, sharing tales of her new life and ensuring her mother always felt accompanied. As time went by, the bond between Abina and Ibrahim deepened with each passing moment. Their abode resonated with mirth, happiness, and triumph. They were graced with 3 lovely children who filled their lives with boundless joy. Each day brimmed with affection and intention, while the nights unfolded in dreams of the future they were crafting side by side. Ultimately, Abina and Ibrahim's love demonstrated that affection, comprehension, and resolve can triumph over the most formidable obstacles. They genuinely experienced a blissful existence from that moment onward. A brilliant illustration of boundless love in action. Hey besties, thank you so much for watching this amazing story, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making it. It would be wonderful if you could share your insights in the comments section. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do so and activate the notification bell to stay updated on our latest stories. I truly appreciate your support, your affection, and all the encouragement you've given me. They hold immense significance in my life. For now, I must take my leave and look forward to our next tale together. Farewell.